Hi, this is Chris, Video Game Dust Sleeves, and you're listening to the VGDS podcast with DanCavDragon,
Hey everyone.
Dizzy the Gamer Jit,
Doing super.
and Guest Gamers Dad Level Podcast,
Oh, look, it's a one-up mushroom.
and MT Shark 7.
Hey everyone.
First segment, as always, Sleeve It or Leave It. First title is Saturday Night Slam Masters for the Super Nintendo. Dan, would you sleeve it or leave it?
This game has grown on me over the years, so I would sleeve it.
Dizzy.
I've never played the game, but the name of the game sounds kind of bootleg. I'd leave it.
MT Shark
I would sleeve it. I heard this is a really fun game.
and Dad Level.
Yeah, let's leave it. We had some fun times playing with my friends back in the day.
Next title, Weapon Lord for the Super NES. Dizzy, sleeve it or leave it?
The name got me on this one. Yeah, I'd leave it.
Dad Level.
Let's leave it.
MT Shark.
Yeah, I would sleeve it. Is that an X-Band game? Is that what it says?
It's a Namco. Is it a Namco?
It's Namco.
Namco.
X-Band,
Yeah, X-Band. Yep.
Oh,
You got it.
interesting.
And Dan?
Yeah, I think I would sleeve it.
I got everybody right. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Next title, The Lawnmower Man. Dad Level.
I would totally sleeve it, and then I would either put Jeff Dunaway's face on it, or actually 3D pop it or something.
Ooh.
Dan Cav.
I don't remember this. I thought this game wasn't very good, if from what I heard, but I've never played it, so I was gonna leave it based on that. But if everybody else thinks it's a great game, I might change my mind.
Well, I didn't say it was great. I just said
Dizzy.
I'll sleeve it as long as I don't have to cut the grass.
MT Shark.
Yeah, I would sleeve it. I think it would look pretty neat as a 3D pop, too.
And the last title, Shadowrun. MT Shark. Sleeve it or leave
Yeah, I
it?
would sleeve it.
Dizzy.
I've never played the game, but it looks interesting from the front. I actually would sleeve that. Yeah, it looks cool.
Dan Cav.
Yeah, this is a sleeve for me.
And Dad Level.
this is a sleeve and a 3D pop. I enjoy the series,
Nice.
and I really enjoyed this game, even though it's really hard.
Next segment, co-op edition. Guess that box art. Anybody have guess for the first image?
Adam and Eve for the 2600.
Uh,
Is it a Leisure Suit Larry game?
Yeah, it kind of looks like that.
You might be on the right track.
Let me ask you this, Chris. Does it start with the H?
No.
Okay, I don't know what this is.
Was it on PC or just
I think it might only be for... No, it's not. I don't think it's only for Super.
okay?
Lesser than the Unlikely?
You got it. Lester the Unlikely.
Oh, shit.
Mm.
Oh.
Anybody
for the next one? How did you pull that out of your ass, by the way, Mark?
I know it was that one game the AVGN did, and I'm like, what game was that? It was really bad and had horrible hit detection.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I remember he tries to get the chicks, and he's just like, that's why he calls him Lester the Unlikely.
Right. How about the next image?
Street Fighter side story with T-Hawk and his brother.
Oh.
Man, that was a really long title.
Is it either is it Wild Guns?
No.
That's what I was.
You're on the right track, though. Something close, similar.
Oh.
Sunset Riders?
Yes, sir.
That,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I should know.
That's it.
That's what I meant the first time. I got
That
that
was on
game
the
wrong.
tip of my tongue, too.
So, which image was my wife and which image was me?
Yours was
Yeah.
Lester the Unlikely.
Yup. What can I not stump you with these guys? Like, every time I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get them on this one. They're gonna say this one's for her, but nope. Everybody always guesses which one I get, which one I do.
Yeah, I'd guess you know the more unusual games. That's why.
Yeah, usually I think what she does when she's searching online for this, she just goes for those like, she always finds the expensive titles. It's usually like the expensive ones that are on here that she picks up. So I don't know. One of these times around, it's gonna be you guys are gonna get it wrong, and I'm gonna finally clap my hands, say you got it wrong. All right, Dizzy.
So next up for logo sleeve of the month, we have the Double E Gamers, which is my good friend Quesadilla Padilla and his daughter Emma. They have a co-op channel where they play together, all kid-friendly games. So if you have kids, you want them to watch some cool games, I'd say check out the Double E Gamers.
Unlike the last podcast where you don't want to let your kid.
Yeah, exactly. Opposite of Freak.
Really good opposites right here.
Just like my daughter, Roblox has put the gaming on hiatus for right now. It's that damn Roblox, man. I don't know what it is, but if you have kids and you want to check out some good videos, I would definitely recommend the Double E Gamers.
Also, don't let your kids play Roblox. That's what my son's addicted to.
Yeah, you know what?
What is
Roblox,
every kid
no
addicted to
Minecraft.
that? Every
It's
kid
a
addicted
retro
to
game killer. I'm telling you.
My daughter plays that.
Wow.
My kid.
My
does
kids
too,
don't
man.
actually. Neither one of my kids really play it.
It killed the retro gaming for my kids. She loves retro gaming now, not just Roblox or Minecraft. Man.
So I'm going to give you a round of applause, Chris, for saving your kids.
Yeah. Yes, you did the right thing.
I'm still stuck on that level. I can't do it.
All right, Dizzy. Since you know the Double E Gamers, what would you put in their sleeve? What's a good game
If
that
I
they
had
play?
to pick a game for the Double E Gamers, it would be the game I liked watching them play the most, which is the Untitled Goose Game.
Haha.
I believe it's for the
Okay.
Switch.
Yeah, it is for the Switch. That's cool. All right, Dan.
All right, franchise of the month. This month we're talking about the Super Nintendo console. So I wanted to have a Super Nintendo themed franchise of the month segment. In the past console segments, I just went through and picked out a few games that were exclusive to that console, franchises that launched with that console. There weren't as many for the Super NES, so what I did is, when the Super NES came out, we saw a lot of the franchises that had started already on the NES, and now they're getting super version of it. They had a lot of the games with super in the title,
Yep.
signifying that they're better versions or newer versions of something that's already existed. So for this one, I took 10 of the more well-known franchises that launched with NES and put them against their super version that launched with the Super NES, and I just wanted to go through and get everybody's thoughts on all these. Because the group's kind of small, I thought, at first I was going to have everybody just take turns and go through them all, but I think because the group's kind of small, we can go title by title. Mainly because the picture's kind of small. I want to make sure everybody can see it properly. So we'll go by real quick each one by one and see what your thoughts are on which one you actually prefer. Did you prefer the NES original, or do you think when it went to the Super Nintendo it improved dramatically?
I know one thing. That first one's hard as hell to pick which one.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yeah, those are the two best right there.
Yeah, so let's start with the Nintendo's flagship franchise and the Mario Brothers series, Super Mario Brothers series, and I picked Super Mario 3 because I thought that was the last entry in the NES, and it was really good. And the pack-in, or at least for me, the pack-in game for the SNES was Super Mario World. So, Dad, love you don't mind starting us off. We'll just go down the list and get everybody's thoughts. Which version do you prefer?
Super Mario World, 100%. I mean, I love 3 a lot. I was around when it came out, of course, and it wasn't all that hype train for it, but just something about Super Mario World just captured me. just there was a level of magic in that game that the more I played it, the more I found like hidden in the game, and I felt it was the next evolution in the Mario series. So kind of like my thoughts on it.
Nice. I'm going to skip myself for this segment unless I have something, really insightful. But Dizzy, how about you? Super Mario World or Super Mario 3?
Both great games, classic games at that. And most times when you say, "What's your favorite Mario?" it's either gonna be 3 or Super Mario World. I've heard people say they like Super Mario 3 better than Mario World. For me, it's Mario World. Like Dad Level said, the hidden things. I think in 3, the only thing hidden that I know about is just the whistles. But Super Mario World, there was so many places to find blocks. Different pathways to get to castles, different levels that were hidden. And if you were playing it since a kid, it took maybe years to find these different things. It wasn't like YouTube where you can, that's where's the hidden level. You had to play the game so many times to actually unlock something, find a key, and that was even fun, finding different keys. So Super Mario World to me is my favorite Super Nintendo game at that. The music, the graphics, all the colors. And I would even say Super Mario Brothers 3 to me is the harder game of the two. I can nowadays kind of breeze through Super Mario World, even taking shortcuts like the Star World to get to the end and beat Bowser. But that's my thoughts on it. My favorite game for Super Nintendo, Super Mario World.
Yeah, definitely a tough one to start off with. How about you, Mark?
I'll go with Super Mario World just because of how improved the graphics were, and it was my first game I ever played on the Super Nintendo, so I have nostalgic that way, and definitely seeing all the different sprite scaling and different like rotating of all the different enemies that it did. I was just like blown away by it.
All right, Chris, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, this is difficult for me only for 2 reasons. One is a nostalgic reason, and the other one is just the gameplay. Nostalgically, I want to say Super Mario Brothers 3, but gameplay, Super Mario World. So that's how I'm going to leave it.
All right.
That answer.
And then we'll continue down, and Chris, we'll just start with you again for Zelda. Link to the Past or the original NES Zelda?
Actually, believe it or not, I never played Zelda.
Ah.
So I can't give you an opinion.
Okay. Fair enough. And then how about you, Mark?
I would go with the original, just because I beat it more than Link to the Past. And that's the one I mainly go back to as opposed to the other one.
All right. Dizzy, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of there with Chris. Like, I haven't really played Zelda games. Besides watching my daughter play the new Zeldas on Switch, I haven't got into Zelda. And there's a story behind that. Like, once I was with my friend, he invited me to his house to play 007 on 64. And when we got there, he just played Zelda for like 2 hours. We watched him play Zelda. We never got to 007, so that made me not want to play Zelda. Like, it put a bad taste in my mouth for Zelda, so I don't know too much about the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say if these games you have like no preference, that's totally fine as an answer. Dad Level Zelda.
So I played through the first Zelda with my dad. There's a lot of good memories with that, but Link to the Past is always going to be my favorite. It's the game that kind of defined the series going forward, as far as like, the dungeons, kind of like the formula was established with that game. I think it has the better soundtrack. The sprite work was great. The puzzles, to me, was one of those games I just get lost in and just play it for hours. Even if I beat it, I would just like start it back up again, play through it again.
Cool. Let's see. Let's start in the middle with Dizzy and Metroid. Did you have a preference between Metroid or Super Metroid? Which game was better?
That's another one I haven't played too much of. I think I may have a Metroid game on Oh, the newer one on Switch, but I bought it and I haven't played it yet, so not too much info on that one.
All right. Mark, how about you?
I would say Super Metroid, even though I don't own it, but I've played a little bit of it, and I feel that's more enjoyable than the original Metroid.
All right, and Chris?
Again, same thing with Zelda. I never played a Metroid game.
Gosh.
Wow, okay.
And then Dad Level.
I'm gonna always go with Super Metroid for it because that was actually the first game I played in the series. I didn't play the one on NES until later on, but that's another game I played with my dad. It's one I can start from start to finish and play it through, and I still have memories of all the things you got to do. I can't do any of the speedrun tricks, but I do love the atmosphere, the music. I mean, the way the game makes you feel. The platforming is great. But yeah, Super Metroid's the winner for me on that one.
All right, hold on. Let me stop you there. So the reason why my answers are like this, like I told Dan and Bones before, common games to you guys, I've never owned. So like the Metroids, the Zeldas, Castlevania is another one. So Dan, you can't even come to me for Castlevania. So that's another games like I have never played because I never owned. When I was a kid, I barely got games. So like those games that were coming out back then, they never reached my collection. I got secondhand stuff, and the secondhand stuff was never the good shit. So like my knowledge with some games, I just never there. And as an adult now, yeah, of course I want to get them, but I end up getting other games besides those games. I know they're great games, but I end up always buying stuff that people consider trash, I guess, So I'll get there eventually. Believe me, I will. I'll get these games eventually. It's just little by little. That's all.
Well, hopefully some of these on the list you have.
I mean, like I do have the NES Zelda. I don't have A Link to the Past, so that's why I couldn't compare that. Metroid, I do not have any Metroid games, but the Wii version. Castlevania, I don't have any Castlevania games. So, yeah, it really narrows it out for me. But it's not like I don't know the games. I just don't own them and never played them.
Yep. Well, speaking of Castlevania, we won't go to you, Chris, but how about Mark?
Yeah, I would say I go with Castlevania 4. It's a tough one.
Yeah. Dizzy?
And I'm kind of in the same boat as Chris. Like, as a kid, I only had maybe 6 NES titles. I'd go to a cousin's house and play the Super Nintendo.
Pretty much.
So I know of games, but I didn't have the chance to play them all the time. A lot of times you just watching your cousin play the games. Castlevania I did own as a kid though, on the NES. That's one of the 6. So Castlevania 1, I didn't get far as a kid. I played it. I would say the SNES version has the better graphics and music, so I would choose that over the regular one. But both great games, classic games at that too. Yeah.
And Dad Level, Castlevania 4 or original Castlevania?
Super Castlevania 4. Sorry,
right.
It's actually my favorite Castlevania game. It's a remake of the first Castlevania. The music, the sprite work, the use of Mode 7. I was I still am a big vampire fan, so the Castlevania series as a whole is like one of my favorites. It's probably be on my top 5 series, but yeah, hands down, Super Castlevania 4.
Yeah, this game sticks out in terms of the Mode 7 graphics, that tunnel level that spins and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
yeah. And then, but the one thing is, I thought it was definitely easier. Like I had so much trouble beating Castlevania, but this Super Castlevania 4, I kind of played through, and I was like, but it felt good. It felt satisfying that I could actually beat a Castlevania game.
Yeah, it's got like, oh, man, a lot of RNG, and if you're. But you can get used to it. I mean, I'm working to practice to try to NDR it. It's one of the games I want to NDR because I just like the game a lot. But I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
All right, and we'll stick with you, Dadlo, for Contra. Hopefully, most of you guys have at least played a Contra game. So, Contra for the NES or Contra 3 Alien Wars for SNES.
So I love the Contra series as well. But as much as I love Alien Wars, I got to give it to the first Contra. Just it's the game I played a lot on the NES, and it brings back fond memories because I'd play it with my dad, I'd play it with like all my friends, and I don't know, Alien Wars kind of felt, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of alien to me, even though I've played it and beat it. It's one of the games that I've probably only played through maybe 3 or 4 times, whereas I've played through Contra hundreds of times.
Yeah. How about you, Dizzy? Was Contra a game you played?
Contra I've played more of recently. I've got Contra 1 and 2 for regular NES maybe like 2 years ago. I do not breeze through the games like everybody else does, but I would say that I'm not sure if it was this Contra on Super Nintendo or if there's another one. The second game I ever beat on Super Nintendo was co-op. Me and my friend in middle school was a Contra game. The first game we beat on co-op was Aladdin, and after we beat that, we started playing a Contra game, and we beat it co-op. So
Yeah, it would have been this one.
Yeah, I think there's only
yeah.
this one. Yeah.
So then, yeah, this was a fun game playing co-op, and like I said, second game I probably ever beat in my life as a kid co-op. So, and the graphics were better. It's overall just a fun time. Like, even if you're not gonna breeze through the game and just beat it all at once, play a little bit, learn the game, give yourself a strategy, put it down, come back to it, and eventually you'll make your way to the end. So that's a great one. I would prefer the Super Nintendo version, definitely.
All right. Mark?
I'm gonna go with the original, even though the Super Nintendo version has like way better graphics and everything. I'm more nostalgic to playing the original.
Yeah, I would agree. That Konami code, 30 lives.
30 lives.
Yeah, everybody seems to know that. Chris, tell me you have Contra or you own it.
I have Super C.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't know these two games.
I know the games.
You haven't played them to compare them.
No. So, but all right. So let's put it this way. I'll start doing this, but I'm gonna do it based on what I know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would pick Contra 3 over Contra. And for Metroid, I would pick Super Metroid. And for Castlevania, I would pick original Castlevania.
All right. For Final Fantasy, some of you may not have played it if you're not an RPG fan, so that's totally fine. But we'll just go. Start with you, Chris. Final Fantasy, anything?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not an RPG. I'm not an RPG guy.
Mark, original or 3?
Yeah.
If I had to pick one though, it would be Super NES. If I had to pick one, 3. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry for cutting you off.
I never played this series, but if I had to choose, I'd go with the Super Nintendo.
How about you, Dizzy?
It's kind of the same. Like, I didn't really get into these games much. I've played Final Fantasy Mystic Quest on Super Nintendo.
Ah, yeah.
Which is like I don't know if it's one of the originals or like a side quest. I did not get into it though. It's one of my most disliked games. But I know so many people that love the game, and they're like, "No, you're wrong. This is a great game." Me, I didn't get into Final Fantasies till like the PS2 era. That's kind of more
be into grinding RPGs. That's what you got to be into when you're talking about this.
Like, once I got a PS2, that's when I started more collecting games for myself. So, and those are the graphics I kind of like. So on PS2, I have like all of them, but nah, these weren't my thing. So I wouldn't even be able to say.
Only dad level. That's what we're looking at.
Dad level.
I know he likes these games.
Help me out here, Dad level.
Where do I begin? I mean, I am a fan of the series. I've played all of them, even the MMOs. I actually met my wife through playing Final Fantasy XI. But I'm going to go with Final Fantasy VI hands down. Of course, 3 for the US release. Because there's just There's character development. I mean, the battle mechanics. You have different characters with different like skills. I mean, come on, and you have Sabin, suplexing a train. I mean, where can you get that in another video game? But yeah, I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. I love Square, SquareSoft, Square Enix, Square EA. So
Yeah, so this is a softball question because this is hands down like Final Fantasy 3 is superior to the original in every single way. I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. This is actually 3 or 6. This is actually my favorite in the entire series. So I would definitely agree 100%.
If you get a chance, check out the Pixel remasters, especially the one for 6. It's great.
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, I'm hoping they do with like 6 what they do to 7. And just do a completely new version of it.
That would be kind of cool. I'm really liking the remake, and I mean I've already finished it. I need to finish it on hard so I can finish up the trophies. But I'm looking forward to the next installment for it. So
yeah. All right, Double Dragon. This is a classic series that got treatment on both NES and SNES. So, Chris.
I actually can say I have Double Dragon, but I don't have for Super, so I can't really compare them. But for me, it would be just original Double Dragon.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, I never played the Super Nintendo one, so I'm just gonna stick with the OG one on the NES.
All right, Dizzy, any Double Dragon in you?
Yeah, Double Dragon on NES, I would play at my cousin's house all the time. It was a great game. I haven't played the one on Super, but I would have to think that the graphics would... I'd have to say the graphics would have to be better, though. It'd have to be the better version. I just haven't played it personally.
Graphics aren't everything.
Well, yeah, I'll follow up on that after I hear Dad Level.
If I remember correctly, isn't Double Dragon 1 only one player unless you played the arcade version?
Yeah, I think so, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go with the Super Double Dragon, even though it's technically not Double Dragon 4. There's some weird thing that when it got released here, it's different than the one that got released in Japan.
Yeah. The only thing I was gonna add was that it has better graphics, but I didn't think that the gameplay was as good. So I like the original Double Dragon better. But that is correct. It's not truly a 2-player game, so they kind of screwed that up.
Yeah. And if I'm gonna play through a Double Dragon, like the original story, I'm gonna play Double Dragon Neon. It's over the top in 80s.
Yep. All right, TMNT. All right, so I picked the arcade game. The TMNT had that original game, and then there's TMNT 2, I guess, which is the arcade version. I picked this one to go up against Turtles in Time because these are both arcade games, and so even if you haven't actually, technically played the NES version, you can maybe compare Turtles versus Turtles in Time, however you want to do it, if you've played these at all. So let's start with that level.
I've played every game. I've even played the arcade versions. I'm going to go with Turtles in Time. Right. It's a better port of the arcade version, even though it's 2 players. But it does add like Slash and like other characters and a few other levels that weren't in the original arcade release. It's got a good soundtrack.
Yep, I agree. Dizzy, TMNT?
Oh, love TMNT. The arcade game was one that my friend right down the street had when I was playing the original TMNT on NES. So that one was a better version of course, to the original. But once I've seen Turtles in Time and saw the graphics and saw what you could do with that game, I love that game. It's another classic for the Super Nintendo. So I would prefer Turtles in Time.
And how about you, Mark?
I would go with Turtles 4, the Turtles in Time.
Yeah, that's I would agree there. And Chris, you played some.
Yeah, actually, I played both of them, but they were in the arcade. And I do have Turtles in Time, but I don't have Turtles 2. Is that what that is? Yeah. So it would definitely be Turtles in Time. I think that's like hands down for everybody in any situation.
All right, and then I'm not sure how many people have you guys played Battletoads, but there was original Battletoads, and then there was like a It's kind of like a follow up on this SNES. Chris, have you played either Battletoads game?
No, and I don't own either one of them.
Okay, Mark.
But
Yeah,
if I had to
those,
pick, let me just get this in. If I had to pick, it would be original Battletoads.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll go with the original Battletoads.
Interesting. Okay, Dizzy.
I haven't personally played either of them. I've seen streamers playing them, and a lot of people like the original. But I'd say, more than likely, if it's a Super Nintendo version, I would, probably pick the Super version just because the music and the graphic more than likely is going to be better. So I'd go for the Super version.
Okay, and Dad level.
Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a nerd question here, or my nerd answer. I've actually never played either one. I did recently just pick up the one on the NES, but I still haven't played it. But I just was kind of like, I watched Turtles as a kid, and, there was the Punk Frogs. And it was like I wanted those characters to be in a video game, not these unknown characters that were just in this video game, no other cartoon or anything for them. But I did enjoy playing them in, Killer Instinct for the Xbox?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is definitely an attempt to compete with Turtles, and that was,
Yes.
they're hoping to launch as a franchise, title for Rare. I think it's the team that did this, right? Rare.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. And they have a remake on the Xbox that came out not too long ago, but other than that, yeah, it didn't compare to Turtles by any means. All right, finally, last but not least, this is mainly for Bandana, who's not here, but Mega Man. I was going to say X-Men. Mega Man. Mega Man the original versus Mega Man X series on the SNES. Dad level, any thoughts here?
So I was first going to go, for comparing, the games iterations for the new systems, where's Mega Man 7? But
that's a good point.
But I'm always going to prefer Mega Man X, and I actually prefer Mega Man X over most of the X games except for 4. I do enjoy playing them, but just something about that game, Mega Man X, was just magic.
All right, now how about you, Dizzy?
Mega Man is another game I haven't played. I know in my opinion, they're harder games to play. But again, I'm going to prefer the Super version over the original.
Okay, and Mark?
I would go with the original because I had never really played the Super Nintendo version.
And Chris?
I have Mega Man 4. That's the only Mega Man I have, so I can't really give a comparison. But I would go with the original.
Okay. All right. Well, that's this for this segment. I know it went long, but there's a lot of good games there, and I was trying to keep score and trying to see which system won, and I think more of you guys have preferred the Super Nintendo versions of the NES.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, what a better way to lead into the topic, the actual topic, and that's SNES.
Oh, by the way, I think Battletoads was Trade West. If I look at it, yeah, it's Trade West. It wasn't Rare. Or am I wrong?
It might have been, but I think Rare owns them now, or owns the rights to it. I think. I don't know.
Okay.
I could be 100% wrong.
All right. I just zoomed up on the picture and looked at it. I was like, doesn't that say Trade West?
Yeah.
All right. So as you can see from franchise, Salute or Leave It, guess that box art. It's all Super Nintendo. So this podcast is a system podcast number 3, which is, of course, the Super Nintendo. Little bit of a brief background. This is a second-gen console. It was released in North America in 91. It's the 16-bit era. There was 49.1 units sold worldwide. It was actually discontinued in 1999 in North America, but in Japan it wasn't discontinued until 2003 because they came out with the model.
Wow.
They came out with a model called SHVC 101. So they kept it going strong for a pretty long time.
Yeah.
And there were 717 Super NES games released in North America, and I know there's a crap load more in Japan. So that's a little introduction to the console if you don't know the Super Nintendo, which I'm pretty sure most gamers do. Do you guys have anything else you want to say before we start the questions about the console? Anybody? No.
Great console.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites besides
Oh,
the
yeah.
PlayStation.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get to it.
All right, question 1. Your experience with the console. Have you played it? If so, when was the first time? DanCav.
Me. Yeah, no, I had it from day one. I was a day one adopter. I remember going to the ATM, withdrawing $200 cash, and like going to Babbage's or Electric Boutique and paying for it. Yeah, so that was the day it was released. I remember being at the store waiting to get it.
Dizzy.
Oh man, Super Nintendo is so great that it has like multiple names. SNES, SNES, Super Nintendo. I just call it the Super. I've always called it the Super. I still call it the Super. The console looks like it came out when I was still playing the Atari. Like the only ones I knew that had it were my cousins. They had a lot of money. They got it for Christmas in like 94, 95. Like most people, I don't think remember that when the Super came out. Like a lot of people were still invested in the NES. You know, they bought so many games for that console that they didn't want to buy the Super Nintendo yet. And the NES wasn't cheap, so people still wanted to get their money's worth for that. So I think like 3 years after the Super Nintendo came out, my cousins got it for Christmas, and it was always like the weekend console. Whenever I'd go to my cousins on the weekend, we would play it. I'd play all the games I never got to play. So, you know, definitely Super Mario World was one of those, but I didn't get to it till maybe like 1993. But loved the console.
That level.
So we didn't. Man, I'm trying to think of this. So we actually rented it, the import version, before it released stateside, and played the Japanese version for Super Mario World. That was my first time playing it. But we had a friend who ended up getting it, and that's how I played it for the longest time. I think we didn't get one until either 93 or 94. So right around, I think we got it at the time that Super Metroid launched. Then we got that, Super Castlevania 4, Street Fighter 2, and something else. But we traded in our NES collection to get it, or whatever I had for my NES.
And Mark, MC Shark.
Yeah, I play it. I have one currently still, and first time I played it was at my cousin Sean's house when he showed me Super Mario World. And yeah, I didn't actually buy the console till I started college. Actually, I used to always play it at my friend's house or at my cousin's house.
All right, question number 2. Do you collect for this console? What percentage of your collection is made up of games for this console? Dizzy.
Me, I like to keep around at least maybe 30 games for each console that I own. I remember back in like 2007, I looked up on the internet Super Nintendo games because I was just thinking about Super games back then, and they were selling for like $1.50, maybe $2 or $3 for the more expensive games. So I kind of came in late. I started collecting again in like 2012, so I'm maybe like 30, 40 games in right now. It's kind of like Mark was saying, like, what happened when I got my first Super, my aunt was telling me if I get straight A's, she'll get me a PlayStation 2, and she got her kids a PlayStation 2. So she actually gave me her whole Super, the kids' Super Nintendo console with all their games, and I know they probably hated me for it, but then the same thing, once I got the PS2, I ended up giving that to one of my cousins, which, you know, of course we regret that, but they got to have fun with it, so no worries.
Mark, MT Shark.
Yeah, I still collect for it from time to time. I'm currently at 81 games for the system, but from being on this podcast, it looks like I might be buying some more.
Gotta get 717.
Oh, jeez.
Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely collect for this console. I've had it from day one, like I said. For the longest time, though, I was happy with what I had. for it. I had all the games that I was happy with, and then only within recent years, like the podcast, being part of the podcast and stuff, and hearing what other people liked and stuff. There's a lot of titles I missed, so I'm going back and filling in the collection. I have about 200 games, so that's like not even a third of the library. So there's a lot of games I don't have, but I still actively collect for it for sure.
Yeah, everybody blames their collecting habits on the podcast. What's up with that?
That's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Dad level?
So I do actively collect for it. It's not like I go out of the way looking for things. It's just if I kind of stumble across something I'm looking for, I'll get it at a good price. I'd say that maybe 10% of my collection is Super Nintendo games. I currently have I think I just hit over 100 for it. But I mean, since I have the Super Nintendo Mini, I have access to all the games. So it's just kind of one of those things. I either want to play it physically or just hook up the Mini to play.
All right, question 3. Impact of this console on video game history. Well, it wasn't a question, a statement. All right. MC Shark.
I would say it had a huge impact, especially since it was, because it was the first console wars. I would imagine. I mean, maybe I would say it was main console wars at the time between the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo.
Dizzy.
I think the Super kind of solidified Nintendo. They had the regular Nintendo, but once the Super came out, it was like, this franchise isn't going anywhere. From the updated music, the graphics pushing the boundaries, like video game history. Like I said, I think it just solidified itself with this console. Nothing was touching it in my eyes.
DanCav.
Yeah, no, exactly what Dizzy said. I mean, NES was already out there. Everybody had it. Everybody played it. It was really popular. Mario was everywhere. But this console came out and really solidified Nintendo as a powerhouse. Genesis had come out and tried their best to compete, and they did a good job. But this is kind of they're like, no, you got to compete with us still. And then, the thing about me that I remember specifically about the SNES was that at the time Street Fighter 2 was in arcades, and that was a really that was a huge game in the arcade, and the SNES version came out, and it was really good conversion of that game. And this is kind of where people started saying, hey, now we can actually start playing arcade quality games at home, and it's almost like the arcade.
Yeah.
Looking back, you're like, okay, there's better versions of this game, but back then that was a pretty good conversion of an arcade game that was super popular at the time, and that really kind of paved the way for hey, we could just play everything at home and start not worrying so much about the arcade.
Dad level.
So for me, I know that Sony helped with the sound chip for the system, and it was also almost the thing that you look at the controller design that's very similar to the PlayStation, and we almost had a Nintendo PlayStation.
Yep, real close. There is one in the
Yeah.
world.
You think about also the impact of games and genres that were created on the Super Nintendo that just did it better than most consoles at the time. You look at all the RPGs, and you think about the RPGs that are on the Genesis, they don't even compare. You had a lot of good franchises that started here that lived on into the next generation. You think of Phantasy Star and Shining Force didn't even make it out of the third generation. But I really think that it was a really good time, because I mean, you at that point in time we had the you could still rent stuff, So I remember just the selection of games at rental places being much larger than the Genesis.
All right. Number 4. Current state of collecting for this console. Dan.
It's tough. I mean, this system, I think, is one of the ones that has really gone up in price. Things are getting out of outrageously expensive, especially if you're collecting complete in box. A lot of people, for some reason, want to go back to this system and get games for it. It's getting harder to collect for it. So not a very good for your wallet, by any means. If you're trying to collect for the system, cartridge in general has gotten really expensive, and this is leading the way, I think.
That level.
I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of great games, RPGs, shooters that are. Sorry, hold on. Shooters that were really good on this console that are super expensive now. And as the next generation comes in, there's not enough of these cartridges around for people to pick up. So it's making them be really pricey.
MC Shark.
Yeah, it does seem like the prices are getting a little out of hand with this and a lot of different consoles. But for me, I just buy stuff like I usually like just nitpick when I'm collecting for this nowadays. Just if it's something I really want, then I'll pick it up as long as the price is good.
Dizzy.
Nowadays, if I see something for a good price at my local retro store, I'll grab it. But I don't go out of my way to search for them on eBay and stuff like I used to do. I'm kind of happy where I'm at with the 30 or 40 games that I got right now. And like Dan was saying, they're getting more expensive, so it's not something that I search for anymore. You're not gonna see them at Goodwill or anything anymore. I think the last cartridges I saw at Goodwill was in 2013 or 14. I seen 5 Super Famicom games that I wanted to get, but I didn't even have a Super at that time.
Number 5, the games. This console is best known for which type of games? Dizzy.
More colorful side-scroller games with good music, like Super Mario World. And I'd even say the fighters, like Dan was saying, when Street Fighter came out on this console, I remember back in the day in 94, 95, that was all the rage. I'd go to a cousin's house and that's all we would play all day, Street Fighter. So there's a lot of good games like that, fighters, even beat 'em ups. Those are the ones that I like the best on that console.
MC Shark.
Yeah, I would say the games it's known for is platformers, as well as their RPG and shooters, just because of how colorful it is and all the different scaling and rotations it can do.
That level.
I'm going to agree with all points that were stated. RPGs for me mainly.
DanCav.
Yeah, this system had a lot better RPGs than Genesis and the NES predecessor for sure. So that's a good console for that. But also this, like everybody else said, the side scroller platformers, the 16-bit era. People think of a lot about those side scroller platform beat 'em ups, and remember the next generation after this is all the disc-based systems and the 3D polygon stuff. So this was kind of the last, I would say, the heyday of 2D side-scrolling type games.
Number 6, the games. Name some classic titles for the console. That level.
I'm going to name my favorite game of all time, which is Chrono Trigger, but Gradius 3. What else? The Super Star Wars games.
DanCav.
Yeah, basically we talked a lot about them in the franchise segment already. There's a few that I left out that level just named, but basically, yeah, anything with Super in the title is probably a better version of what was already out there.
Yeah.
Dizzy.
Super Mario World, of course. Mortal Kombat, even though the Genesis might have had the better version with the blood. Street Fighter, one of the more expensive games. Earthbound. Zombies Ate My Neighbors is a real good one. My favorite version of NBA Jam is on the Super Nintendo.
And MC Shark.
Yeah, besides the ones we mentioned earlier, I would say Star Fox and basically all the Super Effects games and as well as Doom. Enjoyed those as well.
Number 7, the games. Name some games to avoid. Mark.
I can't really think of any.
That's fine. Dizzy.
I'm gonna say again, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest is not my cup of brisk, but like I said, I've heard people say that they love that game, so you might have to just check it out for yourself.
So Dizzy, a thing to note about that game was that Japan thought that, or at least Square Japan thought that the West wasn't good with RPGs, so they released Mystic Quest as a beginner RPG game. That's why it's like the way it is.
So they kind of like dumbed it down a little bit.
Yes, very much.
You
Makes
know us
sense.
Americans, you know.
Yeah, it's not like we're the creators of D&D or anything, you know.
Right?
Dan.
Honestly, like most of the sports games weren't that good. I think if you watch sports games, you're better off on the Genesis with all the EA games and stuff. I always felt like the SNES. I mean, Dizzy mentioned NBA Jam, which is good.
Love it.
But some of the other like Madden football, people always tended to prefer the Genesis version. So I would say sports games, yeah, as a whole, weren't as good. There was a lot of, because of the success of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, there was a lot of copycat fighter games that came out at that time.
Oh yeah.
So there are a lot of bad ones on the SNES as well. I was just looking at the top 10 worst SNES games, and Lesser Than Likely, which you already put up there, was number 2 on the list. So that,
Oh,
that
geez, I
was,
should have said that.
so I'll say maybe avoid that one.
At that level.
I don't have one. I mean, I'm pretty sure I played one that I didn't like back then, but I can't remember it now.
Hey, it's all good. Number 8. Any memorable hardware or peripherals for this console? That level.
The Game Genie.
DanCav.
Yeah, this one's a little harder for me, but yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is like the Super Scope.
Dizzy.
I'd say the Super Advantage joystick is nice and colorful. The Super Scope as well, but I think the thing about the Super Scope is they didn't put the trigger button where the trigger goes like a real gun. They like put it way up in the front. So I actually want to get one of those one day and kind of mod it and put the trigger back where it's supposed to be. But the Super Nintendo Justifier is way cooler.
And Mark.
I would say that batter up bat.
Nice.
Number 9. If you want to check out this console without the actual hardware and games, what are the best alternatives? Dan.
That level mentioned the Super NES Mini is good. You can mod it to play all the games, but also the analog makes a good version of the Super NT or whatever it's called. But that's also a very good hardware. You can play all the cartridges.
That level.
I would say the Switch right now with their Virtual Console stuff. So I mean, it has a pretty good list of games you can play on there.
Dizzy.
Of course, the Retro Pies come to mind. Those will take the whole library of anything, but I actually like the Retron 5. You will need the games, but it's HDMI. As soon as you put the cartridge in there, it kind of downloads the ROM right. Well, if you have an SD card, it'll kind of take the ROM right onto the SD card once you put the cartridge in. So you kind of only need to put the cartridge in once, but you're able to use the original controllers, original cartridges, and like I said, it's HDMI. So Retron 5 is a good console to me.
Empty
Good-
Shark. Oh, go ahead.
Good call. No, it's a good call. Plus, it plays a bunch of other systems too.
Exactly, like 6-7 different cartridges.
Yeah.
MC Shark.
I would go with the Mister.
Do you have one up and running? I want to see one.
Nah, I don't have one.
Yeah, I want to get one day.
All right, final question goes to me. Number 10. My thoughts about sleeving games for this console. Easy, enjoyable, popular seller, nice box art. Give an example if possible. The funny thing is, the example is already in here. my example for this would be Super Strike Eagle, and I did actually 2 versions of this. I did the American release and the Japanese release, and per DanCav, and they're both 3D. I wonder which one's the better version 3D. I'll put a picture up in here. But hands down, the Super Famicom version is a lot better box art wise than the Super Nintendo version of that game. Are they enjoyable? This used to be a pain in the ass, these ones. Because there used to be that little cut at the top for your thumbs to take it out. Well, I don't do that cut anymore. That's officially gone. I transitioned, and now it's just the box art goes straight across, because I found that putting that cut there was kind of pointless. Besides the fact, maybe a little bit easier to grab, but you can technically just turn the sleeve upside down and the game falls out. So I feel it's better to have the box art complete than it is that. And not only that, it saves me time. I don't have to cut each thumb hole out, basically, for the back and the front. So it's a lot easier now than what it used to be. Is it a popular seller? I guess it depends on the person you're asking. If you're asking me, it's not as popular as most other consoles. I would say Genesis has it beat, and NES has it beat from sales from me. So like, if somebody came up to me, they typically ask for an NES sleeve, or they'll typically ask for a Genesis sleeve before they ask for Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo just doesn't have love, I guess, for sleeves. Unless most people have
a couple from me soon.
Unless most people have boxes, like, then they don't really. Then again, I can't even say that because Dan likes sleeving his game and putting it in.
No,
the
but I
box.
mean, I would think that's you would get a lot because the boxes are hard to find.
You would think so,
Yeah.
but
so there's more loose games floating around.
But yeah, I guess people just don't. Well, I think a little bit of it is they have the plastic protectors you can put on the bottom of the game. So I guess most people just use the plastic protector. You know what I'm talking about, right? The little plastic that you put underneath it.
Just the bottom.
Yeah, maybe most people get those, and my sleeves don't work with those. So like, you would have to take that plastic off to use the sleeve. But maybe that's why I don't get as many. Although I did recently just get an order with about 5 Super NES sleeves on it. So
you'll probably get an order from me at the end of the month. I got a trip I'm making to Missouri the last weekend. No, the second to last weekend. So 2 weeks from now, and I'm picking up some Super Nintendo games and stuff. So I'm probably gonna get those. I'll get with you to get them sleeved.
Cool. I'm down for it. And I did give an example already, so I think that pretty much took care of that.
Super Strike Eagle, is that the one where the Japanese version has like a lady on the front?
Yes, it is. Yes,
I
it
remember
is.
that from a podcast.
Yeah, I actually did put it on a podcast before. I do remember that. Yep.
Yeah, the Japan version is way better than the
Gee,
has nothing to do with the game. But,
I wonder why.
So and then the American version is really boring. It's just a plane, but I had to do it just to compare them. I wanted both of them.
Any other questions, comments, anything? Any other questions about the sleeves?
Has anybody complained about the lack of the change in the SNES sleeve yet?
Like I said, not too many people order Super Nintendo very often, so nobody really has said anything that I've recently given or they
I
bought.
wouldn't think so. I mean,
I would think they would want it more than they would want the cut, because then you
Yeah,
got the full box art there.
I'm like, do I need to rebuy mine?
Yeah, so that's I don't think anybody's really gonna like say too much. I mean, they might be like, all right, well, now I got these ones with the cut on the top, and now it just changes up, and now there's no cut there.
I guess it matters on like how you display it, because I mean, I kind of like kind of lay them sideways so I can see the spine.
Yeah, I mean, typically when you put them on a shelf, you're putting them on with the left spine out usually.
Correct.
So most people don't even know there's a cut there until you take it all the way out.
You just have that one random friend who's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna play Super Nintendo. Hey man, why do you have 2 different sleeves? One's cut, one's
yeah. You have somebody anal. Or if somebody has really bad OCD, I mean, that might trigger the OCD.
That's true.
And be
Well,
like,
they can
okay.
say they can say it's like the original version 1 sleeve, version 2 sleeve, and
I mean, I might have an option for that if somebody said, "Can I have it the other way?" I might be generous and say, if you send me the ones back, I'll send you the full sleeve back. So,
I like my original. I may send it to you, get it autographed, and then you can send it back.
Nice.
But other than that, for the Super Nintendo, do you guys know what the most expensive game in your collection is?
I can tell you here in a second. I'd say it's probably my Chrono Trigger copy, honestly.
Probably.
I just have the
That's
regular
sad.
games. I don't have nothing too expensive on Super.
I have Earthbound. That's my expensive game.
Ooh.
I do have Earthbound as well, but I have the cart only, and I only paid $25 for it, like back in 2007.
Nice.
Dan has it complete in box, don't you, Dan?
Yes. and I got it on clearance at Sears in the clearance bin for $49.99.
Okay, so
Nice.
I remember going to Toys R Us and seeing a bin full of them for like $25.
Oh
And
wow.
I didn't even know what the game was. I was like, I'm like, if I would have known it was an RPG, I would have picked it up in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But man, kicked
I
myself.
actually bought 2 and I scalped one for $99. So so I could have made a lot more if I just hung on to it for 10
Why
years.
couldn't you have met me like years and years
I
ago?
know.
I know, right?
Had that.
Yeah.
I thought $100. I was like, wow, I really made money on this game. I doubled my profit, you know.
Oh, jeez.
What about you, Mark? You have anything?
Yeah, the most expensive I have, according to GameEye, is Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past complete in box.
What's it go for? You got a price on that?
Yeah, $190.
Nice.
Yeah, mine is Super Mario Kart complete in box, 114.
Yeah, I got that too.
Oh, there you go. It's 114.
Yeah. Yeah, SNES clean box, man. That'll set you back.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not.
definitely.
I'm always loose cart when it comes to anything cartridge. I'm usually loose. I don't usually buy
Yeah, me too.
complete. CD base. I'm a total opposite. I want the complete.
Same.
All right, Dan.
All right, so podcast pickups is basically
Boo, bones.
yeah. I mean, it's basically our last podcast was the console podcast for Sega Genesis, and so not much since that period of time. I'm actually in a mode where I'm not really picking up much right now, so I don't have much to show. But Bones certainly did, and so we have a picture here that he has sent, featuring his beautiful tablecloth that I had to match color-wise with my picture on the right. But during the last podcast, we had talked about Ghouls and Ghosts and Gauntlet at some point during the podcast, and he went, and during the podcast, I believe,
Yeah, it was during the podcast. Yeah.
he actually picked both of those games up, so that was cool. For me, I mean, we didn't talk about this game in particular, but it just in general it was a Sega game. I do subscribe to Retro Game Treasure, and they stuck Awesome Possum into my box that came this month, so that was a new game for the Sega Genesis for me. And I believe, Mark, you said you had picked up some Sega Genesis games, and the others as well. If you have picked up any Sega Genesis games recently, feel free to share. But Mark, didn't you pick up something?
Yeah, I picked up Virtual Pinball. Did we talk about that?
Yeah, you had messaged me and then you put it on Discord.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only Genesis one I picked up.
It doesn't have to be Genesis. So if you guys got a podcast pickup in general, you can say it if you have.
Yeah, I haven't picked up anything that was like mentioned in a podcast. I mean, the only thing two games I recently picked up were Splatoon 3 for my son, and then Stray for the PS5.
The cat
That's
game.
Yeah, that's a good game.
How about you, Dizzy?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it.
Anything?
Nothing. I haven't picked up games in maybe it's been like a month.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Nothing on my side for as far as pickup related to the podcast.
All right. Well, I'll be interested to see if anybody picks up a Super Nintendo game before the next.
And Bones, next time you better have your ass awake. That's all I'm saying. You missed 2 podcasts, man. And Dan doesn't.
Replace you.
And Dan doesn't know how to spell your name apparently because it says Bones Z06C.
Oh wow! What the heck? What the hell is that?
Typo.
Typo. That's okay. We can leave it like that because he wasn't here. I'm not even going to fix it.
Or I can send you a better version when you put this podcast together.
No, it's okay. We'll leave it like
All
that.
right, leave it in.
Bones deserves it. He deserves it like that.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you fall asleep. Anyway, not the last segment, but almost last segment. 3D or no. This is basically where I go down the line, and as you guys in the podcast know, I do the 3D sleeves. As YouTube may not know, I do 3D sleeves, and they basically go down and they tell me whether they would like this in 3D or not. And that's all 3D or no is. Alright, the first game is Batman Forever. Mark, MC Shark, 3D or no?
Yeah, I think this would look pretty neat in 3D with all the characters.
Dizzy.
Yeah, like I mentioned last podcast, that Two-Face right there is a costume I do have. I actually think this sleeve would make a great 3D. You could probably like 3D Batman to the front, push the background back. I think it would look really good.
I'll do something extra special for you. I'll put you as Two-Face there.
There you go.
Nice.
Sound like my Aladdin sleeve.
Yeah. Danko.
Yeah, I can see this being a pretty nice 3D sleeve. I don't think the game is that great, but the sleeve would be pretty nice.
And that level.
So, I mean, it would look cool 3D. I hate the Schumacher Bat Nipple movies.
I like this movie.
That's okay. I mean, it's all right. It's all right if you like it. For those who like it, that's all right. But it just
I'm a Batman fan in general. I'll watch anything.
But well, we could have had Robin Williams playing the Riddler, so I'm a little partial to that.
Yeah, I always like that idea.
You didn't like Jim Carrey? I thought he played a good part.
I think Jim Carrey would have been a better Joker, you know? Than
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The thing is you have like the dark and gritty with Tim Burton, and then you get the campy '60s style Batman with these last 2 movies, and that's kind of just didn't do it for me, especially watching the Batman animated series. Sorry.
That's no big deal. We can talk Batman, it's fine. Alright. Because you're not going to want to talk about the next one. Shaq Fu. That level, would you sleeve it or leave it?
If I had this, I would completely remove Shaq from the cover and probably put Bruce Lee on there and put Bruce Fu.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Or Lee Fu. There you go.
Yeah. Dan,
and then 3D pop it.
What about you, Dan? 3D or no?
I wouldn't, but if you did get a customer request for this, I would definitely say you have to make sure you pop out Enforcer of Justice on the right.
Well, I probably would, considering it's so close to his neck.
Yeah, pop that out, you know. And
I'll make sure it's bigger than him.
Yeah.
Dizzy?
Again, I don't know anybody who's gonna actually ask for this sleeve.
Hey, I'm just saying, you never know. I got some weird-ass requests before.
I would have probably more wanted to see the Sega version, even though it's the same game. But, if somebody wants it, it's better to be 3D sleeved than not, I'd say, on this
who
game.
knows? People like Shaq, maybe not in Shaq Fu, but maybe as a basketball player.
I mean, it was good enough to get a new game made out of it, right? A modern version of it.
That's a good one.
Put a basketball in his hand right there, Photoshop that, and then pop it.
All right, Mark, MC Shark.
Yeah, I think having his hands 3D popped would look pretty cool.
All right, the next title for 3D or no, MecaRobot Golf. Did anybody know this game exists?
I've heard of it.
Nope. Never.
Is it any good?
That level, you're the only one who heard of it?
No. Dan.
Oh, Dan. That was you, Dan.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I never played it, but I always thought that looked like an Ultraman ripoff on the cover. So.
Yeah, that's what I would say. If I was going to 3D pop it, I'd have Ultraman on it.
And Dan, would you 3D pop it?
No, but I mean, I can see the golf club being a good pop out, I guess.
Dizzy?
See, the robot's made out of metal, and so is the golf club. So what is he actually holding right there? I don't know. Just 3D.
I was the only one that laughed right away. That's a damn shame. It's all, I got a sick mind. That's a damn shame. Sure.
Blur out the golf club and 3D pop it. That's all I'm saying.
How about you, Shark? MC Shark?
I would really pop the golf club.
Oh man. You know, I don't know if you guys listened to the last, what was it? No, I didn't. I don't think I released it yet. No, I didn't release. I can't even ask you guys that. But there's a for those of you. Well, once it is released, because it's going to be released after this one. No, it'll be released before this one, so I can say something. This chrome on here, I can probably do that chrome and make it shine, and that's
Awesome.
It's only because I have a new product that I'm using. It's a holographic paper.
Oh man, that's gonna look sick.
Oh, neat.
So, I've done one, and I already mentioned it, and I know you guys weren't there, but the Sega Genesis podcast we had, which will be released, like I said, before this one. There's a B-roll clip in there. You can see it in there. It's the Ristar or Rystar.
Yeah.
I have that complete in box, and I did use the holographic paper on that, and it came out pretty good. But I'm letting it like acclimate to the weather and surroundings and stuff, because like I don't know how that paper is going to hold, so I'm giving it time before I offer it to others. So
once you know it goes up, I definitely would like a 3D popped Terminator Dawn of Fate with that.
Oh
yeah,
that'd be cool.
That'd be good.
Yeah, it does glisten and shimmer, so it's not like, I wouldn't say if it didn't. So, and Dan's already seen this, so he kind of knows what it looks like, and he can give you an opinion on it too if you want his opinion. But yeah, it's definitely I would think the more silver it is, the more it would shine, because you're not really technically printing the silver, because it's kind of already there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see though. The more I work with it, the more I'll be able to tweak my printer settings a little bit and be able to print a little bit better with it. So yeah, Dan, you want to say something about that, or?
Yeah, no, it definitely looks definitely worth it. I've been waiting for you to like officially release it so I can start taking advantage of that in some of the sleeves. But yeah, definitely I recommend, and Terminator would make an excellent sleeve for that. So I would definitely do that.
Yeah, the robot is what made me think of it.
Yeah,
the shine. So
the golf club,
and not the golf club. Not the shine of the golf club. All right, last title, Donkey Kong Country. Dizzy.
I'd say more than likely this would look really great 3D. I mean, it says it right there, incredible 3D adventure. And a lot of people like this game, so yeah, you could do a lot. There's so many things going on that you could 3D pop a lot on that one, so definitely.
Yeah, especially that top right corner says only for Nintendo.
Leave that in the background, pop everything else out.
That level?
I would definitely 3D pop this one. This is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. It's definitely in my top 5. I would even do the silver on the country part and the bees or the hornets, their stinger.
Yeah, I could see that.
Oh, that look cool.
DanCav.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you put this in there, because we haven't really talked about Donkey Kong Country, but that's definitely one of the best titles for the SNES. There's a mention. Dadla was right. I would say it's top 5 for the graphics for this game were just so impressive at the time. I was just like, wow.
Even the sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, music, man.
Yep.
So just for all that, I would definitely 3D pop
And Mark.
this one.
Yeah, I would definitely 3D pop it.
All right. Last segment. Game of the month. MC Shark.
I would say, I'm gonna go with from the last podcast, Cold Fear for the OG Xbox.
Dizzy.
He's on fire. NBA Jam on Super Nintendo.
You sure he's not on fire because of that robot up there with that golf pole?
Oh man. I need to cool
Bronze out the
down.
fire.
Dan.
I will go with the last SNES game that I picked up, and that would be ActRaiser.
And Dad Level.
It can be anything, right? We don't have to do Super
Yeah.
Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can do anything. It's fine.
Ghostwire Tokyo.
If you had to do Super Nintendo, what would it be? Like, what was the last thing you got for Super Nintendo?
That would be Blackthorn.
Mark, what about you?
I would go with Castlevania 4.
Dizzy, you gave me a Super Nintendo game. That was NBA Jam.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's it. Thank you, guys. That concludes the Super NES podcast. System podcast number 3. 3D's down, 100 more to go.
Amico's next.
Actually, I'm thinking about doing an obscure group. I'm not going to do just one. It's going to be like a group. So, keep that in mind.
Sounds good. I'll be
Neo
down.
Geo Pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to do
CDI.
handhelds too. We're going to do handhelds. We'll get to that. But yeah, like one would be like the Arcadia 2001. Nobody really knows about that, but that is a console.
Never heard of it.
Alright.
That's what I'm saying. Like the consoles you don't know of, like it would be nice to at least introduce them. And I'll just do
Vectrix.
yeah, the Vectrix. I'll do just like a group of them together, and we'll just roll down the same questions. And if nobody has an answer, well, then we don't have any answers. But you know, I mean, I'll do like a brief intro for each one, so
That's
people
Atari
get
Jaguar.
Yeah.
that one. That one's a little bit less obscure though. That's just more like people just didn't buy the damn thing. People know about it. Dan knows about it. He loves that thing.
Yeah.
I would almost
I
say
like
that the
my
Turbo
Jaguar.
Graphics
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
obscure.
yeah. But that's another one Dan loves, so that wouldn't be
Yeah.
hard. That wouldn't be hard to do.
I have plenty to say about the TurboGrafx.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe. As always, don't blow, just leave. Later.
Super.
Awesome.
Peace out, guys.
Yeah.
Mark, MC Shark,
Yeah. I'm here.
Dizzy,
I'm here.
Dan,
Hello.
that level.
You're
That,
muted.
that level, you good?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
It's
Welcome,
good.
true believers.
Man, we got a big group here.